Common Man, Uncommon Vision, the Cesar Chavez story, is brought to you by AT&T, your true choice.
We're not afraid. If this is what it takes to build a union, a free and democratic union.
America had never seen a man like Cesar Chavez.
Which side are you on?
A migrant farm worker who believed he could change the world.
Automatically think about politics.
A humble man with little schooling who spoke of justice.
Signed the first contract in Delano 3 years ago. We were alone.
A man of peace, faith, and determination, fighting against powerful forces.
We thought that it could be done.
Fighting greed and violence and injustice.
It's a paid them plan to come and beat the hell out of us.
Hey, let's hear support the Communist Party. All together.
He aroused the deepest passions. His spirit touched the lives of all around him. He was a great man who cared for our nation's most forgotten population, an exemplary civil rights and labor leader, a man America will never forget. Cesar Estrada Chavez was born in 1927. The oldest son of deeply religious parents, he was raised on a small farm near Yuma, Arizona. The Chavez family farm was not large or prosperous, but with hard work, they managed to make a living. Hard work was not enough. Drought and the Depression abruptly ended Cesar's childhood. Forced off its land, the Chavez family headed to California, along with 350,000 other unemployed workers.
I'm going to California, where they sleep out every night. I'm going to California, where they sleep out every night.
Cesar was 11 years old.
Just nicely ain't treating me right.
We moved to California, and it's, hey, you gotta go and hustle for your life. Otherwise you don't survive. So it was hard. I mean, it was very hard at the beginning.
They were called fruit tramps, mostly minorities. They flooded the fields in desperate search of work. The Chavez family was not prepared for the humiliation and poverty of migrant life.
We lived under a tent. We were lucky. If not, we lived under a tree. We would just put her under a tree there, you know, that's where we lived. Because the growers didn't have houses for the people that worked.
Cesar watched as his father was turned away from stores and restaurants that would not serve Mexican Americans. He saw his mother grow old in the fields, and while the family harvested the food that fed others, they often went hungry.
He talked about growing up, being a young man without any skills, and really without much hope for the future. And he talked about that feeling of uselessness, you know, what am I going to be?
At 17, he joined the Navy and served in the South Pacific. After the war, Cesar returned to California and discovered something far more interesting to follow than the crops, the big bands. He sported a zoot suit, took up smoking, and gained a reputation as a ladies' man, until he met Helen Fabella.
My mother was from Delano. She was working at a gas station, People's Market, which is still there in Delano. And my dad came in for gas, and that's when they first started meeting. Now, from there, there's variations of the story. My father swears that my mother used to give him free gas so that he would take her out, but she denies it to this day.
Helen and Cesar were married in 1948 and moved to a rough neighborhood on the east side of San Jose. With no other possibilities, Cesar went back to work in the fields. He found himself in the same bleak conditions he had hoped to leave behind.
Cesar and I used to talk about this, that something had to be done about the situation of the Mexican American, that, you know, that we were in bad shape. We had no political power, and you know, we had no voice, in other words. That's what it was, and somebody had to do something about this.
Cesar knew something had to be done, but he didn't know where to begin until he met Fred Ross.
We were a little skeptical about him, you know, because any time that a white person came to us is because he wanted to sell us something, insurance or family portrait or a saint, you know, statue of a saint or something like that, you know.
Fred Ross was to change Cesar's life forever. He was working for the Community Service Organization, or CSO, and was in search of new leaders in the Mexican-American community. The night Fred Ross met Cesar Chavez, he wrote in his journal, "I think I've found the guy I've been looking for."
He was impressed with him right away. He didn't have a whole lot of formal education, but he had a very hungry mind and a very quick mind.
With Fred as his mentor, Cesar spent the next 10 years learning how to become a grassroots organizer. He registered voters, gave citizenship classes, and found his calling as a community leader.
Fred was a great teacher, and he and Cesar together were the most incredible team. I mean, it was like magic.
After a decade of work, Cesar decided to apply what he had learned in the CSO and take it to the fields. He wanted to improve conditions for farm workers like himself. Cesar counted on help from other Mexican-American leaders, among them Dolores Huerta, who would work with him for the rest of his life.
Because Cesar's dream, which is his dream until he died, is that the farm workers would have their own union with their own indigenous leadership, and it would be directed by farm workers.
At 35, with no money and 8 children to support, he quit his job with the CSO and moved to Delano, California, to begin the National Farm Workers Association. The Cesar Chavez story will return in a moment.